Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Star Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Willow. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome back to the Star Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. This week is the beginning of the Star Wars season. The first two episodes of the Bad Batch. These
We're
were great
already
episodes.
stuck into it. It's amazing. Can you believe
it? And we've got some special guests with us that will be hosting with us for the entire season.
Sheesh.
So my name's Colin.
I'm Hunter.
I'm Star.
I'm Christian.
And I am Josh, but you already know me.
Yes, and these are my friends that I met through the 501st, and two of them are from Michigan. I met Christian at Dragon Con 2 years ago.
Yeah, in 2021.
Yeah. So, and we love Star Wars, and we love the Star Wars community, and this is a great opportunity to talk about costumes, talk about the show, because the Bad Batch is such a great group of clones that I think a lot of people relate to, and I think this is definitely going to be a great season because in the first season we had to build up the story, but like for the characters, and now that it is built up, now we can focus more on the plot. And during that during the time period that is so dark and so brooding, and it's going to be very interesting to see. But without further ado, let's break it down. Josh, kick it. Let's go. I don't know why I said that.
I mean, we're opening up on the little beach planet that we have. I mean, we've got the whole gang again trying to get away with some cargo, and we have giant enemy crabs, so that's fun. What did you think of this? I mean, it was shown in the trailer, so we knew this was coming. I like that it was in the first trailer, and it's also in the first episode, so I don't have to like sit there and be like, all right, when's the crab scene?
Mm-hmm.
So but seeing the new characters again, the characters again is great. You see that they've aged, of course, and how they look a little bit different as well. Any views on how they're looking different? Any views on the planet or these giant enemy crabs? How do you feel it started out?
So Colin kind of alluded to this a little bit, but Star, Christian, and I all come from like specifically the Star Wars costuming side of the community too. So all of us immediately jumped to looking at that, but for me, this was like our first real look at the costumes. Like we saw a little bit in the trailer, but obviously sometimes they change stuff and you get more views in the actual episode. So I was really drawn to that, but that's just because I'm that kind of Star Wars weirdo. But yeah.
I think you're not elaborating enough on it, because when we saw the trailer and we saw some of the footage at Star Wars Celebration, Hunter and Christian both jumped out of the seats and we're like, "We're making those!" and they were taking pictures and like everying.
Will we do that, Hunter? No.
No, not us.
Not us. No.
But they also show. I think they did show the. I think they showed the full opening scene of where they're running away from the crabs at Celebration, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They showed a lot of that first bit at Celebration.
Yeah.
Just part of the crab rave.
Yeah.
I did enjoy seeing how, because no one's going to clean their armor anymore, they have to basically fix it themselves and or paint over it themselves. Same thing to go with the ship. The ship is far more busted up than the last time that we've seen it, and it's got scratch marks all over it, and they've kind of gone over it with some extra paint detail, just kind of cover up all those scratches, because no one's going to really fix it besides themselves. So I'd enjoyed seeing that on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the evolution of the costume shows where the characters are at a bit more too, because they're no longer Republic soldiers. They've all wiped off their 99 emblems or like any references to being a Republic clone unit. So it shows them putting that behind them a bit and moving on to whatever their new place in the galaxy is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like the addition of like things that you have seen in other Star Wars movies, like Hunter's belt. Like I like how they're like mixing in like different pieces of Star Wars costumes and kind of like bringing them into this off of the like Imperial
Like
I'm-
how
Right.
Omega's little satchel thing has the same like belt
Yeah.
clip
Yeah.
thing that from Star Wars that everyone like.
Yeah.
Is that like is
Yes.
that not, it's like the Han Solo belt clip thing.
Yeah,
they
it's
have?
that the hexagon
Mhm.
clip, and then
Yeah.
on Wrecker's belt, he's also got the pouch, and he's got what looks like almost like pulse rifle cartridges on the side now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's cool because it helps you like blend it and be like, oh, I can see where this is moving into like the
right.
post-Republic era, and like I can imagine
Mhm.
these costumes like pre-Andor, and like you can kind of see where you're getting like I don't know Rebels feel. So I like mixing that.
Oh yeah,
That was cool.
It's cool seeing how much Omega's really grown in comparison to what we've seen from the last time. So she's very confident on her own now. So I enjoyed seeing that because in our following scene, she's definitely shooting a bunch of crabs, being
yeah.
quite a part of the team. So I really enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah. And I'm surprised that the Empire did not do anything with the crab creatures. And the only reason I'm saying that is because of the armor on them, like can take a beating. So I'm surprised that they didn't like
See
kind
crab
of go at that.
commandos.
Right.
I mean, as tough as those crab shells look, a part of me is also wondering, like with its durability sense, because that's definitely like a Imperial crate that they're hauling back to the ship.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, okay, maybe it's just the fact that the Empire hates all things nature.
I mean, that wouldn't make a lot of sense in
Yeah.
their purity of the Empire. So
Right. You mean you're not seeing a green space inside the Death Star or a Star Destroyer?
No, that's
That's
true.
Yeah.
true.
That's fair.
and then our next scene, we go back to the little bar with our little cameo character for now. What'd you think of the little cameo that we have currently? I don't know how much of a player she's going to be.
So her character, I'm probably not going to be able to pronounce her name right. But her
she's played by Wanda Sykes.
Yep, she's played by Wanda Sykes. Her character's name is Fee Genoa.
Sure.
and we and we know that she is a pirate. Other than that, we don't really know anything about her. I could see her and Hondo being friends. I mean, it just seems like all the pirates like just kind of know each other. So I could definitely see her playing more of a larger role in the show, especially if she's the one that is getting them jobs. But my guess is by the end of the show that they are gonna maybe start leaning towards the rebellion side of things. And that seems like what Echo wants to do. Because he still has that soldier kind of part in him that he wants to keep going and fight the good fight.
It's kind of all he knows right now. And I feel like we have Clone Stories where it's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and build my own life. And I'm wondering if we're going to get a kind of fight between the group where it's like, hey, we need to go join this whole rebellion side of things, or I would rather keep low and keep this family going well. So,
yeah,
Definitely.
I feel like that's
Echo comes from such a different background compared to the rest of Clone Force 99. Clone Force 99 is used to doing their own thing and being off on their own. And all Echo has ever known, well, aside from when he was plugged into the computer, but he's been with the 501st and the rest of the clone, part of this big unit, fighting the good fight and like trying to help out other people for like the good of a cause.
Yeah, and even like I don't know, like what you're saying, Hunter, he's had the influence of working like really up and close with two of the most like prolific Jedi, or if not three. I mean, you've got Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan. He's heard what they've done. He's worked with them. He's been able to see them really have an impact on people's lives. And Clone Force 99 has been running around helter-skelter being renegade clones, being like, will we do this or will we do that? Will we follow orders or not? And so like Echo's got a really different perspective of like, oh my gosh, there's this evil empire and we should help. And like, I think that's directly from his Jedi influence and from 501st.
Yeah.
Makes sense that 99's not quite there.
And not just that, but it's also very much that he well, no, because the big thing we know the clones were being told a lot as they were serving was that, the separatists were how we view the Empire. And now that he saw that, oh, we've become our own enemy, well, then I have to do my part and fight them. Where the rest of them are kind of like, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think Omega's little ship knowledge is going to pay off? I feel like this is a little Chekhov's gun moment that we've been having. Every
Yeah,
time
well,
we've seen her right now, she's getting this
we
data
are-
thing.
We already see it pay off at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, I'm
not
wondering
the end,
if
this
it's
is
going to be
by the end of
something
the
at the
episode,
like end of the season where you have this whole kind of like, there's no
It's-
chance of us getting out of here, and then Omega's like, actually, I'm
I
super
think-
smart.
I mean, that's kind of what it's going to come down to. I think we're going to see a lot of development in Omega
Yeah.
as far as the level of responsibility that she takes on
Mhm.
being part of the squad.
As of right
And-
now, where her character stands, do you feel like she's a competent character, or would you feel like we need a big reveal with her? Because is the reveal that we've already had enough? Because I feel like a lot of people are always just like, "Hey, she's completely like force sensitive on the low." Like that's like everyone's rumor currently, and I don't know if that doesn't pay off. Where does she stand in the Star Wars universe as a liked and enjoyable character?
Okay. So I think that we'll get that when we go to Coruscant, for
Mhm.
sure, and in some way because of there's that scene in one of the trailers where like she's kind of peeking over and it looks like she's looking at the Emperor, but I think that might be a big mislead and it might be a totally different scene. But I think something will happen where the Emperor will definitely kind of will catch more interest in Omega, and there might be a big reveal there. But I don't know if do you guys think she's going to be like some type of like clone that has some of the Emperor's DNA, or do you think that it's like she's going to be her own separate thing?
I hope, and I like as far as what I think is going to happen, that she's going to be her own thing.
Mhm.
And that's not to say that she's not going to be of interest to the Emperor or the Empire either. I think obviously we know that there's something special about her because she's like she doesn't have the same age acceleration as the other clones, and the Kaminoans seem to think that she was important in some way too. So I could see her becoming almost like a MacGuffin in this season without necessarily having something extra special like being related to the Emperor or whatever. I think she can totally stand alone and still be important and impactful.
Mhm.
All right. And then they basically get given the mission to go and take Dooku's old war chests.
Over at the planet Sereno, and this is something else that the Hunter and I were talking to, which I didn't spot. I didn't think they were going to that planet like at all. So when that showed up, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, all right, interesting. But Hunter said that there's a part of the trailer that you can actually, from one of the trailers where you can actually spot like his office area where they're looking out the window or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you
Oh,
get
okay.
to see those big green glass windows. I think it was in the second trailer that they dropped in like November or something.
Okay.
Someone
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong. But
No, I don't think you're wrong because I completely missed that. So I was happy that it was that because it was something that we were familiar with. We're like, oh, we know where that is. We actually learned more history about it. But for those who don't know that much about the planet, that planet is think of it as a kingdom because of Dooku was born like into that planet, and there's a bunch of books and everything about that. But basically, after Dooku's brother passed away, he took up the mantle of Count, and then he was in charge of that entire planet. And you find out in the second episode about some of the people that live there. But what's interesting is from what we learned from Tales of the Jedi, everything that happened in this episode that involves the people and them kind of talking about like Dooku taking the spoils of the planet and everything, it kind of contradicts his story from the Tales of the Jedi, because he didn't like that the Senate was corrupted. He didn't like that the Republic was corrupted. So the fact that you find out that he took some of the belongings from people and the spoils of war from his own people, that, you know, that kind of says something. But yeah,
I mean,
anyways.
I don't necessarily think it's you know, running against what we got in Tales of the Jedi, because
Okay.
Tales of the Jedi takes place what 10,
Yeah.
15 years before
Something
like
like that.
everything really goes down to some
Mhm.
extent.
Yeah,
Because we got to have Anakin grow up fully. The Separatist movement hasn't happened yet, so it could be entirely along that time where his ideal of I'm leaving because of this corruption and the Jedi being complacent, and then it becomes instead while this is happening, as I'm turning more towards the dark side, that dark side, you know, selfishness
Yeah.
starts to show itself more.
I don't think I meant really contradict. I think I really meant to say like he's like changed like a lot from what we
Yeah.
saw from the beginning all the way to where he is now.
Yeah.
Because of what we learned in like of what he did during the war, that like, you know, goes against pretty much everything, the reason why he left the Jedi Order and everything. So it's kind of funny to see that he became the corruption that he was trying to get rid of and leave.
Yeah, I don't think that the irony there is surprising.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we're seeing a lot more of Dooku, and
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it right now because he's a very intriguing character. I'm 100% for it. I am interested on how much more we can really tell about him in the animated series. It's interesting to see like all these different stages of Dooku right now, because we didn't get much of it in the prequel, so it's cool seeing like all the stuff that we're bringing from the books and adding to the shows. So I'm enjoying it quite a bit right now.
Yeah.
Something I liked about that, and I could be jumping, maybe I should wait, I might be jumping too far ahead, but I liked at some point in the episode when they talked about like it not just being like separatists as the problem is that Dooku's corrupt.
Mhm.
Kind of pulls out that like from Tales of the Jedi, like the problem's the corruption, not the separatists themselves. And I liked that, like, oh, you can have, you know, good people who were separatists. That's really not the problem. It's that Dooku is inherently
Right.
Yeah.
corrupt and gives into his corruption. And I liked that, like, that they reiterated that. So
Yeah.
So basically, our next scene is we're basically surveying the planet and seeing the whole Empire's control of it. From the last time that we've seen this, what do you guys think? What are you feeling about how the Empire is now completely in control of the planet?
I mean, it's just always sad that all the clones are going by their numbers again,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
by
Incredibly
their nicknames.
depressing.
So, do you guys think that they're just taking all of that cargo and they're just putting it like in the Emperor's safe and locking it up? Like, what do you think is happening to all of like of the spoils of war, which is, you know, kind of part of the title of the next episode? But what do you think is like happening to all of that?
it's war funding. I mean, the Empire's expanding everywhere. You got to fund ships and you're training new soldiers. You're phasing out clones. I mean, you've got a whole
You got
lot of
bribes
stuff
to pay.
finding. Yeah, you got Death Stars to make. I mean, you got a lot of stuff to pay for.
Plus, I wouldn't be surprised if it's, you know, characters like, you know, Rampart or Tarkin or other just Imperial admirals that are just saying, hey, there's some expensive loot here. I'm just going to take that for my
Some
own pocket.
extra. Yeah.
When you're talking in the scales of like, you know, trillions of trillions, no one's going to notice a missing million here or there.
Yeah,
That's true.
The Empire's the biggest bully in the galaxy right now, so they're taking all the lunch money they can.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
It's interesting that they only need a tiny fraction of what is there to be able to completely disappear.
Mhm.
And I wonder how
Yeah.
much that really does
Yeah.
cost in terms of like credits, or how much it really takes, because we feel like the Empire has a complete stranglehold on the galaxy right now. So I wonder how much it actually is that much of a stranglehold, or is it just kind of in these early stages, it's not as bad as people say it is? Because I'm like, if only a little bit of a fraction of that is able to completely make you disappear, that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I remember when it was the whole switchover when you got to see it in Solo, and you see just how the like everything is super automated, everything like is completely locked down. Also in the older episodes where you had everyone has to have like chain codes now. We gotta be able to look at all this documentation, and I'm like, oh, okay. So it feels like the stranglehold is very deep and ingrained now. So I'm interested on seeing what really is the worth of these different items.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that personally, I would think that has less to do with like how much of a stranglehold it is, and it just tells you how poor everyone else is. Like that's a lot of money, and everyone else is super poor. It's not that wouldn't let the batch disappear. It's that normal people would not ever be able to get past a chain code, falsify all that information, because it's not that the Empire doesn't have a good hold, it's that nobody's rich.
Yeah.
And then would you say that leads into why so many people end up joining the Empire in the future?
Oh yeah, definitely.
They're forced into it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can never discount how much importance in any universe having the ability to feed yourself takes.
Yep.
You start to overlook a lot of injustices if that's the only thing keeping a meal on your table.
Yep.
So then our scene is them sneaking in, planting bombs as a distraction if needed on the ships. So
Classic Hunter.
yeah, pretty much.
I'll never get over the fact.
Specialty.
I'll never get over the fact that every time I see scenes like this where they're sneaking in places, I'm like, people don't have security cameras. Like they don't
No.
exist.
Right? Yeah. I was thinking the same
Nowhere.
thing.
Well,
Nowhere.
Well, you like might think that maybe the Death Star has so much security because of the Bad Batch. It's like cameras like in like every single floor and just every hallway. But yeah, oh man,
Yeah, it's interesting to me how we have this whole. I wonder how far they can completely stray for themselves to be separated from the clones, because when they are fighting, they're still stunning them.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
And I wonder if we'll ever get to the main point where it completely switches blaster fire and they're not stunning them anymore, and they feel
I
like they
mean,
are.
Wrecker picked up a cannon.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not stunned.
I think
Yeah.
that is going to be a big recurring theme this season, though, in general, is treatment of the clones in the Empire
I think they're
and
going
how
back
the
and forth.
batch relates to them. At the end of season 1, when they were back with Crosshair on Camino, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of jabs thrown back and forth from Crosshair, like, hey, since when do you care about the regs? And then the remaining members of the batch being like, well, they're our brothers, you know, and that was the big thing at the end too. Omega says, hey, you're my brother, you're their brother, you need to come with us, and Crosshair just ignores that.
Yeah.
And that is going to be the big dividing line between them, especially when Crosshair comes back too. And I think that's probably going to motivate a lot of the inter-character relationships that we see and how you deal with the shift of attitude towards the clones in the Empire, and then what happens to the clones when they are pushed out and obsolete, and how that's dealt with like within the ranks of the clones and externally too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really want to see when the certain point is where they're just like, all right, we don't need you anymore. Because I mean, we get that little fun cameo in Kenobi.
oh
where-
yeah,
Where I'm kind of like, is there a point where they're just like, we don't need them anymore? We just
Well, I
need to
mean,
get rid of them.
from the mindset that I would take if I was in the Empire is I would want to start phasing out clones as fast as possible, because
Yeah.
it's very easy to view an outside force as oppressive, but once you start knowing that, oh, that's my neighbor who's wearing the uniform, or that's, you know, my friend or my brother who's wearing the uniform, then it becomes oh, well, then they can't be that bad if my family's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like? I'm wondering with the chip, can they just turn that off? Can they just be like, hey, we don't need you anymore? Okay, does it just automatically do that for them? Because I'm wondering what happens, because that whole scene in Kenobi made me go like, does this guy just still hate like all Jedi, or is he just like, oh darn, I really messed up. Oh well, I'm just stuck here, I guess.
I think we saw a bit of that in season 1 with Hauser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems almost like their forced compliance to Order 66 has like worn off
Waned.
or whatever, however you
It
want to
has a
describe that.
half-life.
And
Yeah.
now it's a personal choice as to, do they want to follow the same mindset as Crosshair and be like, hey, we're just soldiers, we're just following orders, or do they think on a more like, I don't know, a individual level and start to
Mhm.
break away from that because of what they personally feel is good or evil.
And
mean-
I think it has to do with like their ability, right? You can think it's like, oh, I don't want to be doing this, but like realistically, what are you going to do? Just like be like, hey, goodbye, Empire. I'm going to leave by myself. So I think there's probably
Right.
going to be a
Right.
dichotomy of even like
Yeah.
thinking about, pulling back into old canon, thinking about like the Clone Rebellion. And I really hope that we're setting this up of like, yeah, that's my hope. They need a mobilizing force to even help them get out. Like realistically, what are you going to do? Like maybe your ideas of like following Order 66 is waning, but like what are you going to do? Just like walk out of base one day? You're going to get hunted down and killed. And so
Right.
you might. I'm hoping that we see some of this. Like the Bad Batch sees the clones like Hauser and other people are like, they don't want to be in it. They're kind of trapped, and so they need mobilization to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of saw that a little bit in season 1 with Gregor trying to escape
Right.
that base, and like he called Rex, or Rex found out or whatever. And I would really love to see Rex kind of be an instigator and all that to get clones out who want to be getting out. And the Bad Batch helps with that, or I think that would be awesome. And I think what we've seen in trailers and the discussions that we've already heard within the Bad Batch when they were Hunter and Echo were talking on the ship, or like what Sid was saying to him about, hey, let's get out and have a life. Like I think all that's going to come into play.
I think from basically where we are is the team gets split up. We got a few that are going on that cargo, stuck on the cargo ship, and we have a few that end up making it all the way to the room with the elevator. So
Yeah.
The elevator.
So currently, I feel personally, I've already seen the animation differences from the first season to this season.
Oh, it's crisp.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
And I feel like once we get to seeing all the broken like glass stained pieces,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that's very pretty in comparison of what we've been seeing
I mean, it's
before.
it's come a long way, because you have to think all the way back to how the animation style was in 2008, and
Cartoon
even us-
Network.
yeah, right, exactly, and us going into the theater and just being like, whoa, Star Wars is back and everything. But now going forward to like what we have now in the Bad Batch, and especially the last season of the Clone Wars season 7, like that, the animation style has jumped so much. And I remember watching Star Wars Rebels, and I was disappointed that it wasn't the Clone Wars animation style. I like still, I still love Rebels. Like don't get me wrong, but that I love that the animation
Rebels
is
has
getting,
a different flow.
Yes.
They have very repetitive movement, and it has always put me off with Rebels. It is the same like mouth movement to head adjustment. I did animation for a while, so I was kind of like, when I see Clone Wars style animation, I'm like, dang, they put a lot of effort into it. And with the Disney money put back backing them now, and you see how much the studio has really grown, I'm like, I'm all for it for what we've seen so
I mean,
far.
it's important to note that with Rebels, they had a way smaller budget to begin with than Clone Wars did, because Disney was super like, this isn't going to work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me, because the way it turned out for is it the Resistance show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Because budget wise, I feel like that one they would have dumped so much money into. But
Yeah.
I mean, we still got more Clone Wars, which was great, and that was we did mocap for that, and I was just like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, this is great.
It's really just this also like the art style they want to go with.
Mhm.
Mhm. I
Because
can
they want
also
to make it very clear with Clone Wars that it wasn't, the same micro series Clone Wars we got like right before Revenge of the Sith. And then with, Rebels, they were very much, okay, we need to make sure this feels different than Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And then with Resistance, okay, we'll have to make this different again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think for me it wasn't just the animation for the Resistance show. It was more of like the like show didn't like have the same vibe as Clone Wars and Rebels, and then on top of that, it was also trying to tie into the sequels way too much, and I think they were trying to make it like more like to kind of do what they were doing with the Clone Wars, where when the first of the prequels came out, people were like, oh yeah, like here it is. But then when you watch the Clone Wars and then you watch Revenge of the Sith, it's more sad and it's more impactful because of everything that happened in the Clone Wars show. And I think that's what they were trying to do with the Resistance, and it just didn't work. And it was sad because I think Dave Filoni actually worked on that project, right? Or no?
I don't know if he did.
I don't remember.
Okay, but yeah.
I mean, with our team being split up, eventually we get to a point where they have to fight their way out, and then they release all the cargo to the cargo ship, and it's starting to fall back with them inside all the way to the planet. What did you guys think of the scene? Did you think it was fun? I enjoyed it. And that's basically where that first episode ends up cutting off a little bit of a cliffhanger for us.
I mean,
definitely
great cliffhanger.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
kind of more of like a dump your cargo hanger type thing, but yeah, cliffhanger.
Yeah.
This is one thing that I have of an interest for this is how this is how many I think it's like only less than half an hour of an episode, and
It was
22
21 minutes,
episodes,
I think.
right?
if you
Yeah,
take out
because of the first
credits.
episode, and then the second episode was 26. Yeah, it was 26 with the actual show, and then 27 was like the credits.
Yeah.
It's interesting for me because we've come off of so many episodes of the live action being like 50 minutes, 47 minutes, like these really long episodes, and it feels different for when we're having these shorter form episodes. They're still long in comparison for an animation. It's just interesting that we're having this I'm like, oh cool, we have a cool cliffhanger at the end. It's like
That
I
is a
forgot
really
what that
good.
feels like.
That is a really good point too. That the feel of this show coming right out of Andor is so different,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and like
Yeah.
not that it's bad at all. It's just
It's very
different.
healthy.
It did almost take me a second to like kick back into the gear of watching a Clone Wars type episode
Mhm.
that's like a shorter serialized format and isn't like as gritty as Andor is.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
personally, for me, that's amazing because I never want a show and its themes and all of its underlying themes to feel overplayed or played out. I want to be like,
Yeah,
hey,
for sure.
cool, we got this. Very emotional. All right, give me a little bit of a break. Give me back
Yeah.
into fun
No,
stuff.
I mean, like
yeah,
you don't go to a restaurant and it has all the same food. I mean, I guess some do, but like you go and there's a bunch of different kind of stuff and a bunch of different vibes you can get,
Yeah,
and it still like is the same type of thing. It's like that restaurant's type of food. Like if you go to like whatever type of restaurant, and it's the same kind of thing with Star Wars. I think you can tell very impactful stories and good stories in very different ways.
Mhm.
true. I will say, I think that this episode, these first two episodes were kind of a mislead, but at the end, it kind of made you realize that this is definitely going to be a darker season than the first one.
Yeah.
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 Especially with the ending shot, which we'll talk about. But I think that something big is going to happen that will definitely impact Rex. And I think it will definitely make sense why he was the way that he was in Star Wars Rebels, where he was isolated. He was with Wolf. He was with Gregor. I think it might involve Cody. I know we're all hoping that it doesn't come to a point where they're fighting each other, but I think that's probably going to happen, and that's going to be very sad. And I'm going to want Hunter to live stream because I know he's going to cry.
No, the public doesn't need to see that, Colin.
Yeah.
If I do live stream it, I'm going to be crying underneath the helmet, and you're not going to
be able to. Because I could also see it going to where in the trailer, you have Rex saying, "Hey, I need you guys for a mission." Maybe that might be a mission to where he wants to help Cody escape, and then something goes wrong in the mission. I'm really hoping they don't fight, because if they fight, that's going to be really sad for everyone.
They're gonna fight.
I know.
Yeah.
Dave has a track record of hurting us.
Yeah.
Dave Filoni looks at all of us and goes, "How much pain can I inflict today?" Got it. That one.
So we open up on our second episode. This episode being titled "Ruins of War." Basically, just coming up back where we just left off with Omega's team basically crashing back down. Are you guys happy that it is a complete boom? This is in the next episode, and you're starting immediately back into it. Nothing different.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my thing. I think the cliffhanger from the first episode was kind of pointless because we knew that it was gonna go it was like, oh, we have to wait a whole week. It was like, just click the next episode and you see exactly what happens. So that was my only thing about the beginning of it. But the whole thing with the cargo ship like that, I think the first time that we saw that type of cargo ship was in Star Wars Rebels.
It was.
Yeah. So seeing that now, during the beginning of the Empire, like the Age of the Empire, was very cool to see. And then to see, them actually get all the cargo off the ship, that's so much credits, just flying out. So you have to think that planet's going to attract so many pirates because it's going to take the Empire forever to get all those crates all the way back and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get more of Ricker's whole team going through the castle. And they're basically saying this whole place is completely surrounded with Empire, and they are all on high alert, essentially. And then you have the Omega's team finally hitting down as well. But they do the whole things teetering on the cliff thing. That reminded me of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And there's the cliffhanger. Got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole time I remember watching everything in there shifting and being like, oh man, they better injure someone. They better injure someone. This is just there's no way all that stuff moves.
As that happened, I was
like,
we just came off of Andor's side, and I was just like, please no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So of course, as you said, we have a friend get injured. So Tech ends up having a complete fracture. So everyone has to help him out to get out. So
that's good on him. He walks on it.
well.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty funny. He just
For a
walks on. He's
femur. Yeah, femur like that. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
all right, he's genetically
His legs
enhanced.
would be
Okay.
dragging.
He is technically built different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
A
glad
part
to
of
hear
me,
that.
a part of me figured it was probably the fact that he's still got strapping on his thighs, which probably helps act as a partial, way to have his bone set. But at the same time, he's also probably running on adrenaline.
Oh yeah.
And we know that at least while you're on adrenaline, you can go for a while in really incredible circumstances. But the fact that he continues to do that throughout the episode is kind of damn, boy, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
got some of those shots that Batman has, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
I know.
So,
I was thinking
yeah.
back
Skip back.
behind the scenes, but
yeah. So, in your guys' opinion, which I think I know which way you're gonna lean, is the stormtrooper armor like stronger, or is the clone trooper armor like more like
Dependent on phase.
okay?
I think we have this answered for us by Rex and Rebels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Rebels, he says he prefers the Phase 1 armor because it's tougher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and I also look back at the different episodes of Mando where just like those stormtroopers get their
Yeah,
like,
they're the
helmets
Yeah.
just bashed
the
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just could never really see that happening to like clone armor. I mean, I guess, but yeah.
It always felt like to me that clone armor takes 1 to 2 blaster hits, maybe a third if you're if you're lucky. But you know,
Yeah.
because the Empire started stamping out stormtrooper armor when they were like
Yeah.
having already solidified control, it didn't have to be as tough because
Yeah.
they had sheer numbers to
Great
overwhelm
value
the quality.
troopers.
Yeah.
Whereas
Whereas with Death Troopers, who are special forces stormtroopers, they have
Yeah.
genuinely tough armor.
Yeah, but I mean that's like commandos in that way. Like the Katara
Yeah.
armor is like way tougher, and then that makes me wonder about like Bad Batch. I've always kind of thought because they have like pretty much commando
Yeah.
armor. It's like
Yeah.
their stuff is, I guess, in my opinion, probably more Kataran, more tough than even Phase 1 and
Yeah, you would think.
other
yeah,
Yeah.
because then that also takes me back to the whole era with the Xylo Beast, because they were planning on using like
Yeah.
that type of armor and they
Yeah.
never did. So the question is, what happened to that? Like I know Dave Filoni did like 2 episodes of it and then it just never got, that like story never went anywhere. So I'm curious if maybe
I mean,
he might tie up some loose ends in the Bad Batch, and we might see something about that in the show in some way or hinted at. Because
I mean, if that gets tied up in the Bad Batch, that's going to be a really long thread, loose end to tie up. That was
Yeah.
season 1 of Clone Wars?
that was season 2.
Yeah, season 2. So that is a long
Yeah.
ways back story wise for what was, it felt like, to me, episode of the week style
yeah.
telling.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
Continuing on with the episode, we see how the Clone Force is completely on their tail. Then they figure out that they are split up, and now the Empire is setting up a perimeter. Now that they're split up, they end up getting the call like, "Hey, we're gonna go and not be on comms anymore. We're gonna go radio silent."
Mhm.
Then our next scene is having Omega. I don't know if this is a kind of a little hint that she's force sensitive or not, because I feel like people will read into it, or that she just sees that someone is watching her. Now it's one of those things that I'm like, I really don't know if we're planting a seed here, or we're just.
I mean,
grasping onto this.
they show the dude rustling around in the bushes.
Yeah, you see the
before
top
he
of his head.
says,
It's
"Hey, we're
yeah,
gonna
it's
walk."
interesting to me because I'm kind of like, you would think that the hardened commando people would figure that out immediately first, but then I'm kind of like, they're preoccupied, and I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
Tex got his
Gamers.
broken leg. We got Echo supporting, Tekken.
And it's
get
also
everyone
not to
going.
say that they haven't noticed either.
That's
Um,
true. They just didn't say anything about it.
Yeah,
maybe
right.
maybe they were using that as a teaching moment for Omega and being like, all right, we won't say anything. Let's see if you can spot the problem, and then she picked
Yeah.
up on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
it is pretty interesting how she's immediately like, I don't trust you. I'm gonna like immediate like bow point, gun point kind of
Yeah.
thing. I was like,
Especially when her weapon's the only one that doesn't stun.
Yeah.
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 It means business.
But you can also tell that her vibe has changed a lot, especially from the first season. Because in the first season, she was the one that was, getting in trouble a lot, and she was slowly learning how to use her weapon. And in these first 2 episodes, you can see that she knows how to hold her own now.
She's gotten proficient.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's actually how she feels, or it's just always being like, I have to perform. I have to
Right.
be this step up no matter what. And I feel like that's still kind of her playful nature, is that still very young, still probably would like to be having fun and being interesting in that way, but I don't feel like she's like, I have to be not a burden to this team no matter what. So I wonder if we'll get more of that this season where I know that she's more part of the team, but I wonder if she'll get to the point where they have to be like, hey, I understand you're part of the team, but you're not like a soldier. I don't want you to end up like we are, where that's all we do. That's all we know. I want you to be able to lead this and not have this soldier mindset all the time.
Well, that seems to be Hunter's bent just from the
Yeah.
first scenes in the beginning.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think something as well that I think something big that Boba and Omega have huge in common is they had a deprived childhood because they were born into a world of war, and they haven't had time to be kids at all. So
I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
same with the clones, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but
I mean, you could argue that Boba, of all the clone characters, has the most of a childhood
That's what I
compared
was-
to any other character, because he at least
Yeah.
grew up with somewhat of a father figure in a somewhat like
sure.
single parent household.
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably got the same kind of weapons training and everything else that his dad would have enforced for a biological kid in any other sense.
Mhm.
But it was still very much like he had a dad. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was the dad who was like, "Oh, you fell and scraped your knee. Let's rub some dirt into it." But
yeah.
But still, yeah, in that way, I almost think actually Boba and Omega have the most child because even like she's on the run, sure, but like the clones are like they're training from the moment they're like 3, right? Omega
Yeah.
gets to like have these weird older brothers that tote her around, and she gets to have little toys even if they are weird. So I don't know. I almost think it's the opposite.
You know what? You're right. You're 100% right.
yeah,
Because of I mean, I don't really count as the normal clones as the regs for having a normal like stage of growing up, because of they have their growth spurt where they're full adults like in 3 months or something like that, right? So they really don't have the chance to have a
no,
childhood.
it's a little longer than that.
Oh,
It
really?
takes-
Is it?
It
Okay.
takes a couple of years to go from the
Okay.
incubation stage to at least like able to be deployed.
Yeah, because isn't it
Okay.
like it's just straight up double, right?
It's double. At least that's what it was in the Republic Commando books. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Hunter.
And
Like,
that's
yeah,
why we
that's
have the
double.
clone experts on here.
I'm going to Wikipedia. Excuse me, real quick.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
Exposed. No, I'm just kidding.
It's an infinite resource, all right? We have it. It's the internet. Can you
So-
believe it?
Speaking of the Republic Commando books,
Let's go.
this is something
Porsche.
that I know at least Star, if not Christian too, is also eager to talk about, with this whole notion of getting clones out and like the fact that they can have a life outside of the Grand Army of the Republic and stuff. And that's something that we got 5 novels of that were
Yes.
awesome and ended way too soon. And the fact that we were shown Scorch at the end of season 1, and we're seeing a lot of Kashyyyk stuff here
Yeah.
in the trailers and all that.
Let's go.
It seems like we may be trending towards that, and that's super exciting.
Oh man, I'm so
Mhm.
with you, Hunter. I'm so excited.
Mhm.
Like if we can get, I mean, let's get Sev.
Yeah.
But if we can
Yeah.
get some commandos, that would just be the coolest thing.
Yep.
And it would totally tie in with the
Yeah,
messaging
like it
from
it
the
wouldn't.
start.
Yeah, it wouldn't be shoehorned in at all. Like it seems like it would
No.
actually really fit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then we. Do you want to continue?
Oh yeah, no. I am very excited to see what other clone cameos that we'll get this season, because I think one that I'm really hoping that we do, and it would make sense because we got Gregor last season, would be Wolf.
Wolf.
So I am hoping that maybe in the next episode they end up going to Coruscant, and when we see Cody and Crosshair, and then like Wolf walks up, it's just like, because I don't think we know exactly where he was during Order 66, because I know he was with the Plo
Yeah,
Koon, but he wasn't the
don't-
one that shot him down.
No, Plo Koon was shot down in a starfighter.
Right. So I don't know
Yeah.
if he was on the
Wolfpack is
cruiser
unaccounted
or
for.
or like he was in the ground fighting or something. But I'm really curious to see where he stands.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then we get introduced to our new character, Romar. So, someone who's lived on the planet for a bit. And is there?
I mean, that looks like he's been there for forever.
Well, yes, forever. Yeah, I'm pretty interested in. I like how super distrusting both sides are with the whole Empire angle. I enjoy
Mhm.
that quite a bit. So what did you think of this character's introduction?
I think it like made sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's some dude who was displaced because of what the Empire was doing. So what you were saying about how he doesn't trust the Empire makes total sense.
Mhm.
And once he figured out that Tech and Echo and Omega were not part of the Empire, then he immediately was like, okay, I can kind of get behind these guys a little bit.
I can help you a bit. I don't trust you, but I can help you a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
of
don't
course
know.
you know where I live now. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really have a choice here, so now I gotta take you there. It's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Well, you have a gun, so
I don't know.
yeah.
I think he seemed like, at least this is my opinion, so whatever. But he kind of, I felt like took some stuff away from the episode in a way because, like, the episode would have gone exactly the same if Omega would have like sneaked off to go back for the treasure, and like I didn't quite see his huge point
That's
there.
fair.
Like I
Yeah.
see like he was trying to give Omega some like cool tidbits, but like Echo was also trying to do that. So like I feel like he could have given a little bit more development to the batch in those scenes. I didn't see how he was going to tie into the story later or like have a big part. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was my opinion, but
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, that he didn't
Because-
matter at all.
like literally you could cut every single one of his scenes, and then she would say the same stuff like, "Oh, I heard you on the ship say this, Echo," and like literally the whole thing would go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, he kind of just took some time away from the batch.
The
and I was
only
like,
thing I wonder
Yeah.
if they're gonna do with him is the fact that him and Tech have that moment where they power up that like data module.
"Hmm,
And we have at the very end of the episode, there's a lingering shot of him. So I wonder if it maybe there's something in that data core that he
Right.
then reaches that back out to them.
yeah,
Okay.
Because we know, like, I think there's the one trailer where we see like it's Gunji and isn't it battle droids?
hmm
Yes.
So it could be something to do with that. Maybe that's the tie-in. Otherwise, I could see him as maybe just being like a foil to, if Count Dooku is what we think of as people from Sereno, maybe this is just like, no, this is the normal dude. This is what he could have
Yeah.
been if he
Yeah.
hadn't been, a total like dark sider.
yeah,
I feel like he's a exposition dump on just how Dooku isn't
Yeah.
his corruption, and I also
Yeah.
feel like it was interesting with the scene that comes up with him talking about how this is like a toy, but Omega's concept of that isn't there, of this whole feeling of joy, and how that's this person's most important thing is spreading joy. It's more valuable than anything that could be inside that crate. Which is interesting to me because I'm like, she only sees the mission right now. I think that brings us back to that whole conversation of she is very a soldier right now. And I feel like in the future, we're going to get to a point where like, I want you to be happy and not have to be a soldier,
Mm-hmm.
where she has to kind of make that decision. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I feel like that was his main kind of thing of why he's there.
yeah.
That would be my view on it.
And something else, like as soon as he comes upstairs of with the actual device, I liked how he said that they were not always part of the
Yeah, it
Separatist
wasn't
alliance.
always separatist.
Yeah,
Right. That's
and
I liked that.
that's kind of leaning towards of the future of where people from the Republic, people that were part of the Separatist alliance, will have to at some point come together to form the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's definitely hinted at Andor, especially the scene of where Luthen and Saw are talking about a mission, and Saw is refusing to do a mission because of the person that he was supposed to do it with was a separatist, and he wanted
Right.
nothing to do with it. So I think we're
Yeah.
going to see that transition of where and especially with Echo, I think Echo is gonna kind of have the hard transition, because we saw that in the first season where he was like, why on earth are we on this planet? These people were separatists. Like, I don't want nothing to do with it. And I think we're definitely going to see more of that. And I think Echo is going to come to peace with that, hopefully.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think of Wrecker Soul Team going and finding the old battle droids and basically commandeering it? What do you think of
I
that?
mean,
That was
I
fun.
loved it. And actually, there was something I rewatched the episode. I was up until 1 a.m. watching the episodes in Pacific time, and then I rewatched them while I was at work. But with my bosses watching, no, I wasn't. I promise you, I was working 100% of the time. But something I noticed on my rewatch was that every single shot Wrecker takes with the tank doesn't hit a clone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's aiming at the ground. He's aiming at the stuff around them. He's aiming at the trees.
I wonder if this is a Rebels type thing.
Maybe, but at this, given the ending of the episode,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the
Yeah.
case.
That's fair.
And how Disney Plus has, they put out that notice about like mature content. When they
Yeah.
got Daredevil.
Yeah, that is very
So
interesting.
I wonder if that's like their opening to maybe not, like, they don't have to Disney all the violence if it comes to it.
Yeah.
I think they're slowly
I hope
phasing
you're right.
into it.
Yeah.
Because I had the same sense during the first season of like I like had that same mind process. I'm like, maybe they're gonna not go the same way as they did in the Clone Wars. But then you watch, that first episode of the actual show, and you see, Order 66 happen and everything, and then you go to that second episode where like Crosshair just falls out, shoots the guy in the face, and you're just like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
This is the Empire. Like, we are getting to a very dark, gritty territory, and it definitely had its fun moments. But I think in this season, I think it will be more dark and more gritty. And I think the Bad Batch are going to have to realize that that as great and noble it is to use stun, there's moments where they're not going to be able to do that every single time. And I think they're kind of leaning towards that, in these first
you
couple
think
of
there'll
episodes.
be like a point where stun isn't an option and they'll have to make the decision to
Yeah.
We already have that in this episode though with Tech.
Yeah. Yep.
Because
Yeah.
there's the part where he's behind the tree while Echo and Omega are down in the shipping crate, and you hear blaster shots come out. Those are not the stun shots; those are blaster shots.
Yeah.
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 Well, and then he takes out that whole gunship and it crashes into
Yeah.
the side of the mountain. So
Yeah.
I think Tech's body count is up. So
Yeah. He really went from like, I'm going to stun everyone to, okay, turret.
well, and I mean he's the MVP of the entire episode, just
Oh yeah.
goes with it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think they are definitely going to focus more on Echo and Tech like this season, because they were definitely there in the first season, but I feel like they really didn't get their own kind of story arcs or anything like that, and I think they will during this season. But I loved that we got more shots of the gunships because of we didn't really we're like slowly kind of phasing out of the Republic era of stuff, because I'm guessing at some point during this season or maybe the beginning of next season is when they will phase out of the A-wings and they'll turn into TIE fighters. I think we'll most likely get into that era, and it was also cool to see the A-wings as well in these first two episodes.
And these are V wings, not A wings.
Oh, V-wings.
Also,
Sorry. So sorry.
You're good.
I think that transition's hinted at because in the first episode when Omega's going through the study of the different
Yeah.
ships,
Yeah.
because she's asked, like, is this a Delta or a Lambda shuttle? And she goes, oh, it's a Lambda shuttle, but it's the shuttle we clearly see during the use of the Republic.
Yeah.
But we know during the Empire, the Lambda shuttle is that, shuttle
Yeah.
Tidarium style at the end of, like,
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi. So at some point, the Lambda shuttle goes from having that rounded cockpit to being that full triangle.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that the V-wing will kind of transition into the TIE fighter, and it will definitely have that similar look, but it's very interesting to see like how they are gonna maybe explain the design, and I'm really curious who is in charge of all of those designs for the ships. And I hope that maybe we get that in that shipyard because if you watch the trailer, there is a shipyard scene and there's a bunch of different Republic cruisers. I don't think we're going back to the planet Baraka. I think we're going to an actual like Imperial shipyard. And I would love to see maybe like the designer or anything like that because we really don't get that. In any of the shows or anything like that. I think the closest that we got was maybe in The Last Jedi, where they were explaining on how the ships were made and everything like that, and where the of where all the prophets came from and who they came from and everything. But we didn't get that much word on on who was designing the ships and everything. So I would love to see that maybe in the show because yes, this is about the Bad Batch, but this is also about the birth of the Empire. So I want to see more explanation for things.
Yeah.
I mean, skipping a little bit ahead of what we've seen. So we have Omega sneak off. She goes back for the cargo. So then we also have the whole record battle with the cannon, as we've spoken before. Then they go over to try and rescue Omega as we've gone back to comms. And we're getting their whole escape, and as they're escaping, we have Omega actually lose her spoils of war essentially, and she desperately tries to get it back. What did you think about that? Of her trying to?
Those are the worst backpacks in the history of
Yeah.
backpacks.
Or they're useless.
Right,
Like,
but they're also cool looking though.
They are.
They're cool looking, but it's a backpack you
I know
can't
Star Wars doesn't
load.
have zippers, but come on.
Yeah. There is a reference in there. Hunter and I talked about this already a bit. Like, I don't think it's a big like reference where it's like, oh my gosh, but I think it's hinted at. And it's the part of where Omega's trying to reach the treasure, and Echo calmly says, "Let it go." And to me and a lot of other people, that's a hint to a scene in The Last Crusade where Henry Jones Sr. is trying to save Indy, and Indy's reaching for the Grail, and then he says, "Indiana, let it go," and then they, get up and leave the temple. So I think that was a kind of nod at the scene, but Hunter's saying, "No, it's not." So Hunter,
I'm
deal
saying
with
that.
that.
It has similarities, but I think that particular let it go
Yeah.
was not an original Indiana Jones thing.
Yeah,
I think it's just a nod to it at most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
if we
that-
can get those eggs or the fertility stones in Star Wars, I feel like we could throw in cute
Yes,
little ones.
that's very true
Yeah.
as well.
because
Hey,
there actually were a lot of Indiana Jones Easter eggs in the Clone Wars, especially stuff in Ryloth and in season
Yeah.
1, like for sure.
and
And then
in
you
Andor.
have, and in Andor, and then you have that one scene where Cad Bane's looking for a new hat. And he actually like picks up the Indiana
Indy
Jones fedora.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which I think that would have been a great look. But
I
that's
mean,
just
it's
me.
important. I mean, if you go back to Raiders, Raiders also has, Indiana Jones stuff graved on the Ark. So it has, I think there's a little tiny C-3PO, there's a
Yep.
tiny R2-D2, and then I think
Mhm.
there might be another reference
Yeah.
to.
That was so. It was on the actual Ark. It was in the temple.
it's in the
It was
chamber,
in
right?
the-
One of
Yep.
the pillars.
Yeah.
And there's another Star Wars reference in the Crystal Skull, like of what you're talking about, of where it was kind of engraved. It was engraved in on the wall right next to all the
Yeah.
Not aliens, like different dimension beings is what George Lucas named it. So then he could, make a movie that had, things very similar to aliens, which that's a whole other podcast. But, but yeah. So I thought that was a cool reference, especially because I am on that Indiana Jones drive, which most of you all know, because I'm so pumped for the 5th one, and I just got done with my Indy costume. But
It looks great.
yeah. So
Going on through the episode, we basically have Romar rescuing the Omega team, and then we have them taking off essentially, and then we get an emotional scene of Omega and Echo, and basically explaining like, hey, I'm super sorry that we didn't get the money, and I know that you would have had a better life without me, and you gave up everything for me. And it's interesting how much they're playing up this emotion with her, and I want to see where it's going to turn out. And yeah, I feel like she's had a lot of this. She's having a lot of this I need to prove myself thing. So I'm interested to seeing where it's going. But it is pretty funny where he's like, "Hey, I'd do that all over again. Like, it's completely worth giving up.
Yeah.
Like, this is my life now, essentially." So I enjoyed that. And then our next little scene is having our officer come through, and basically like, "Hey, you guys failed. We lost. Like, you ended up making us lose like 15%. You only got 85. This is a failure for the Empire, except one of the parts of your mission report says that the 99 Force was here on this planet, even though that to record that they are dead."
Yeah.
Yeah, Rampart's not a nice guy.
He's a piece of work.
Well, I mean, hey, all he did at the end was shoot the guy in the head, and he fell off the cliff. Like, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
that bad. I'm just kidding.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that is pretty bad.
I think it's interesting that he says to Captain Wilco.
Wilco.
Which is a tragic name in of itself.
Irony.
The irony. That,
Painful irony.
and
I think that's the name of a band, right?
and it's not just that. Wilco is military shorthand for will comply.
Oh,
What was it, Order 66, but a forced will comply.
there you go.
Yeah. But I think Rampart even says he doesn't care that they lost part of the war chest. He cares about the fact that Clone Force 99
Is
is
back,
referenced in the report. And he's like, no, they're supposed to be dead. If they're
Yeah.
not dead, I failed. Then Tarkin's gonna eat me alive for breakfast.
Yeah. I think that's just setting up for. I mean, I think that's setting up for a specialized team to go after them, led by
Yeah.
Crosshair. I think
And
that's
then-
it's like,
It's gonna
don't
be
tell
led by
Tarkin,
Crosshair.
get him, kill him. Yeah.
And then eventually it'll be, the downfall of Rampart, which is Tarkin being like, so how about that Clone Force 99?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Because Tarkin is, the second most intelligent Star Wars character.
Shoot.
I put Thrawn in the top tier. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, I would
Ron
definitely put
deserves it.
Max Rebo up there, but that's just me.
Intelligent with music, all right? A
Yeah.
musical genius.
I'll put Max Rebo top 5.
Oh, good, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, of the 2 episodes that we got, basically just explain that ending bit. How do you feel, and how do you feel about where this series is going?
Dark. I want darkness. I want to see
Okay,
the
Batman.
I am vengeance. No. I want to see the clones just kind of transition into to transition into more of the Empire, of where they're wearing the actual stormtrooper armor and everything. And I really want more of the clones kind of debating on if they are, if being part of the Empire is the right thing to do, especially with Cody. I'm really excited and very terrified for that storyline, because Cody was such a huge part of the Clone Wars as to me, as much as Rex was. And it's going to be really tragic to see these two friends and most likely fight each other. And there's a scene in Star Wars Rebels where it was kind of like a flashback. I mean, not really a flashback, but more of like Rex is living the old days, and they end up going to that planet, and they have to fight the droids, and he's with like Kanan and Ezra, and they're like going on through, and you like hear him kind of talk about Cody a bit, and then you think, why isn't Cody there? Why are the Bad Batch not there? Like, what happened? What got Rex to that point where he went to exile? So I'm very curious, because in the episodes that we saw in the Bad Batch, he was in full out force of fighting, like of fighting the good fight, fighting the cause.
I mean, there's the implication that Rex is working with Senator Organa.
Yeah, but what happened to the point where we see him in Rebels, where he's in exile? Like, what got him to that point? I think it has to do something with Cody.
It doesn't necessarily have to be something with Cody. It could also just be he got too recognizable.
Oh, okay.
And we know that at least for a period of time, he's in communication with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Before he just stops replying, and then we learn that's because Wolf is intercepting the messages.
Yeah.
Or I think you're staying on the happier side because you don't want to see something happen to Cody.
I mean, can you blame me? I like every other Clone Wars fan has a very deep attachment to almost every single clone trooper.
Yeah.
Except for you, Slick.
Yeah. Battle droid fingers.
I think by the end of the season, we're gonna have transitioned over to majority stormtroopers.
Yeah,
I would agree,
because I think we're gonna start, especially with the two middle episodes, which is the Clone Conspiracy. I think that's one of them is titled the Clone Conspiracy.
That is episode here. I got
think
the
it's
episode list.
9.
Yes. No. That's episode 7, and then episode 8 is Truth and Consequences. The third episode is called The Solitary Clone.
Yeah.
Very interesting, which I think that might have to do. I'm thinking that we'll have to do something with. Oh, okay. All right. Well.
Yeah.
But
it could be a lot of clones.
It could be a lot of clones.
Stuff.
I wonder if we're gonna get a episode in this season that's kind of a Cody POV, the way we had an episode in Rebels that was Callus POV.
That'd be cool.
That would be neat.
Because there's an episode of Rebels where you open up on an Imperial ship and you are seeing everything in first person from Callus's perspective until he gets near. And that was a jarring kind of episode to watch, because it was very much the realization of everything that he had thought he stood for was wrong.
But how about your thoughts, Star?
Yeah, I mean, I have my hopes, and then I have what I actually think is going to happen, and they're a little bit different. So I'll go with hopes because I want to be optimistic. I really hope we see by the end of this season either a setup or a follow through of a clone rebellion. I've mentioned it a million times, and I'll keep talking about it. Really hope we see more deltas. I really hope that we see kind of a Cody maybe realizing that he's wrong, or maybe Cody, because like I have my own thoughts about the Revenge of the Sith and the fact that he misses Obi-Wan, always knowing it's wrong, being stuck and not being able to get out, and maybe showing, Rex's implications of trying to smuggle clones out, Cal Scaretta style. I really want to see some, like, that's my hopes. I really hope we get some like mass exodus of the clones, or a uprising of, there's a lot of them in there that have not been okay with what's going on. They just don't have the means to get out.
Yeah.
And I really want to see that, because I think that trying to throw it up to like every single clone has a personal choice and they've all chosen to stay is just like, it's a little, for me at least, I'm like, no, they're forced in an army. They just one day decide to leave. So I'm really hoping they play on that. I'm really hoping they play on this, like, give them an uprising and they'll get out, and I really hope we get some clone rebellion spirit going, and some Delta Squad.
Yeah. That line from Cody in the trailer where he's like, there's a lot of clones that are questioning the order.
Yes.
That's very much like the effects of Order 66 are wearing off, and there's all these
Yes.
clones that are like, I did what?
Yes, exactly.
Oh man, I mean, like, I don't think Rex would ever be the same character ever again if he found out he was the one that took down Ahsoka. Like,
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
you imagine being in a trance and then waking up from it and
Right.
you
Yeah.
just like, I can't even imagine what Commander Bly went through. Like,
Oh my
like
gosh.
after he
Oh
got
God.
out
Yeah.
of that trance, that would have been like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like of them feeling used for the entire war just to get to that point, and then being
Yeah.
like, it would be
Yeah.
nuts. It'd be crazy. And I hope that they, I hope we get more of a perspective from the clones about Order 66, and
Yeah.
maybe we have them kind of talk about it, being like, I
Yeah.
at one point I was fighting a battle droid, and all of a sudden I blacked out, and my general was gone, and
Yep.
it was me
I
that took
I
her
want a
out.
clone centric story,
Me
Yeah.
too. Me too.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Hunter.
and not necessarily like Bad Batch specific, as in like clone centric, but like the story of the clones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need that because we've told, I mean, in Star Wars, they've told a lot of other stories which have been been awesome. We've already told the Rebellion story. We told it
Yep.
in Andor. We told it in Rebels.
Yep.
We told it in
And this
Bad
can
Batch.
lead into, and like the clone story could lead into that just
Yes.
fine, but we have
Yes.
this specific thing we don't have answers about.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we need that. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%
I agree.
agree. 100% agree. But yeah, that is it. There's other Star Wars news, but we'll definitely cover that because this is already over an hour. And but yeah, guys, no, I'm very excited for the season. I'm excited to get back into Star Wars animation because we haven't had it since. I mean, we definitely had Tales of the Jedi, but that was like each episode was maybe like
Right.
10 to 15.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome to get back into this mode because for most of us, I think every Friday or Saturday we would end up like going after school or waking up every Saturday morning and being like the Clone Wars, and you would just hear like Tom Kane's voice and be like a galaxy divided, and it would be like yes, let's go.
A galaxy at war.
Yes. So I'm
Yep.
so excited that we are getting back into that mode. And there's a lot of Star Wars content happening this year. So this is just the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But with that being said, we appreciate all of you listening. We want to be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. We're on Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We're on Twitter at Stuff Pod. We're on TikTok, search Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We have a Gmail. Go and email us. We love hearing your feedback. Please go on Apple Podcast, Spotify, everything. Give us a review, even if it's all about our producer David. We love hearing back from you guys. And we're also on Twitch at Star Wars Stuff 77. Josh and I are getting Jedi Survivor, and we are gonna play all the way through, like nonstop on Twitch when it comes out. So get ready for that. We're super excited. Christian, Hunter, Star, where can we all find you?
Instagram and a little bit of TikTok.
All right.
Under J Guy Hunter.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
see all the little projects I work on and stuff.
All like it's not hundreds of them at once.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're super excited. And then Star, really quick, because I know that like this was your first time, and I just want your opinion. You went to Galaxy's Edge this like past week. How was it?
Yeah. So I have to say, it was my first time in Disney World.
Disney World. Yes.
I
Yes.
did go briefly to Galaxy's Edge in
Mhm.
Disneyland.
Yes.
So this is my first time really getting to settle in to
Yeah.
just spending a whole lot of time at the two, and it was really awesome. It was, I mean, Colin, it was so cool to see you and to get to just go right on to Rise of the Resistance. Because that was, it's just a totally different feel to be able to look all around you 360 and be like, wow, this is Star Wars, you know. And
Yeah.
it's
How good is that ride? That ride is so good.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It really, really is. It's absolutely worth it, and I had a wonderful time. I ran
Yeah.
into lots of people because I was staring at things, and yeah,
Well, awesome. Yeah, we're I just remember going to California at Disneyland and walking on through, and it kind of
Yeah.
felt rushed. Like
yeah,
even though
Yeah.
even though we were there for a bit, it just felt it was rushed because so much stuff was going on.
yeah.
But I am
Yeah.
glad that you had a great time.
It was lovely.
But yeah, so with that being said, we're going all the way through this entire season, all the way until March 29th. So for myself, Hunter, Star, Josh, and Christian, the Force will be with you always. Maybe. Hang on. There we go.